get a lot of questions about what's the best martial art. You know, in the last 35 years I've been training. I myself have been searching for what is the best martial art that's out there. And really, we have to look at the question, for what? Right? To answer that question, what's the best martial art? For what? So if I was going to take and have character building for an 8-year-old, that might be completely different than a guy who says, well, look, I'm about to move to, you know, Venezuela or some third world country where there's some civil unrest and some economic downturn, and I want to be able to protect myself and my family while we're down there. So those two arts might not be the same, right? If you're you know, 72 years old and you're looking to gain some mobility and get back in shape a little bit and stretch out and have an increased social circle, get out of the house and meet some new people, that might be completely different than the guy who says, hey, I'm about to join the military and I want to brush up on some things, get some basics before I enlist. So before we can do any of that determination of what it's going to be, what's the best martial art, we have to break that down. So Guru Asano broke it down for us years ago in the 3 categories. There's martial art, martial sport, and martial science. So martial art would be things that are for beauty. You know, it's when you're working on a level of mastery where it's about the artistic expression of the art, or your personal artistic expression of the art. And martial sport, which is what most people are familiar with, would be things like boxing, wrestling, MMA, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu tournaments. All those things are martial sport. And then the martial science would be what we refer to as the combative application. So those would be the direct application of the training, maybe for law enforcement or for military members, or for a citizen who thinks that that's a real thing and in their life, and they want to really examine the martial science aspects for their own safety and the safety of their family. So now that we've got it broken down into those 3 categories, we can more easily define what's the best martial art, because we've now got some categories. So then you have to look and say, what's your personal goal? What are you looking to get out of martial arts? So all of those things have some bleed over. So if you study a martial art that's based, let's say it's Tai Chi, which is a very slow-moving martial art in most practitioner schools, and there's not a lot of contact, there's not a lot of people hitting each other. But it is going to give you some mobility and a social circle and get you up and get you moving. And there are some guys who can really apply Tai Chi. There's some bleed over where guys can be really combative with some Tai Chi. Then you also have a martial sport. So if you're looking at martial sport like kickboxing and jiu-jitsu or you know, even Taekwondo, you can look at that and go, well, that's a martial sport. It has rules, very defined rules, in fact, things you can and cannot do. It's done in a very confined and limited environment. But the bleed over there can be quite effective in a real confrontation, right? So, you know, an MMA guy on the street is probably going to be able to hold his own pretty effectively as long as the situation mimics his training and closely enough. And then you have martial science. So if you're studying the actual application of these techniques and actual application of these drills and these systems in a combative environment, meaning, like I said, law enforcement, military, things like that, personal protection, then you can get that so good at that it becomes artistic. It becomes a beautiful thing to watch. So really, there is no such thing as what's the best martial art. There really is what's the best martial art, or even combination of martial arts for you and for your personal goals.